Great. Param, can we start the show?
Yes, Abu, we can.
Yep, I've already started with the recording part. So let's start, people. Good evening, everyone. My first question to all of you is, in India, we have two eyes. Can anybody tell me which are these two eyes, or what are they called? India has two eyes. What are these eyes called? Yes, yes, people, real quick.
No idea. Like
Param, Shrejita, Amit. It's called IIT and IIM. So these are the two eyes of India. Kartik Sharma happens to be from IIT Delhi and IIM Ahmedabad. So he has both the eyes. Okay. You'll be glad and surprised to hear that, people. Kartik Sharma, he wrote his first novel at the age of 23. And the name of the book is The Quest for Sparrows. I am reading that particular book, and I'm absolutely, it seems as if I've been casted. There's been a spell that has been casted on me. So this is something that I was talking with Kartik. 21st June is celebrated as World's Father's Day. Could you believe that Kartik Sharma and his dad, they write books collectively? So his first book was a joint venture, and the book, The Daredreamers, his second book that we are going to read as well, is also so his dad happens to be a co-author. Isn't that an amazing thing? Okay.
Great, yeah.
So
Really
yeah,
great.
so that's amazing. And his first book, where people struggle for publishers, he was able, and rather, he was able to get Rupa Publishing. Now, as I'm sure you all know, that is one of the biggest publishing houses in India. So if you want them to publish your work has to talk for itself. So it's incredible, and I'm so thrilled to get Kartik today. I would also like to thank this wonderful lady, Vasundhara Gupta. And it was because of Vasundhara Gupta that I got a lead from Kartik. And Vasundhara, I'm sure Param is going to resonate and echo when I say this. When she came for this Readers and Leaders workshop, she was so amazing. And and she spoke about spiritualism and everything. And I told her that if I want to get another person who can, go ahead and do this wonderful job like you are doing, who would that person be? And she was like, Kartik Sharma, you have to approach this person. And I was like, wow, if Vasundhara Gupta is looking up to this person has to be amazing. And people, 2 months ago, I'm not sure whether it was 2 months or 45 days ago, we approached Kartik Sharma on Instagram. And look at this humility. He accepted this right on, with no tantrums whatsoever. He accepted to become the keynote speaker for SDTM. That talks volume about Kartik as a person. Thank you so much, Kartik.
It's a pleasure.
Today's session has, as always, is divided into 3 parts. Once I stop, Kartik, the keynote speaker, will start, and he will continue for 20 minutes. Post that, his next book, which is Daredreamers, will start with Daredreamers, where we'll give passage to our readers to read. Once they read, they will get approximately a minute's time, and I would need Shrejita's help. I always need Shrejita's help. To go ahead, and after that they will get 30 seconds to share the gist. We'll get this thing over by 8:50. From 8:50 we will go ahead and we'll vote for the person who was able to share the most amazing gist. Post then we'll have the remaining 10 minutes where you can go ahead and ask questions to Kartik. Kartik has an amazing topic today, and his topic is to dream. Okay, and he's going to throw a lot of light. So let me go ahead and give him this virtual platform and let him go ahead and cast spell on all of you. With a thunderous applause, let's call on stage, virtual stage, no other than Kartik Sharma. Kartik Sharma, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Abu. That was a very kind introduction. Thanks a lot. But yeah, I would also like to thank my dad. I think some issue. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I would also like to thank my dad before we get into it. And Abu, good connection with the Father's Day recently. I missed that. So yeah, this is a perfect forum to do that. But yeah, as I was explaining to Abu just before the call started, my dad has been like the greatest inspiration for me. I don't think I would have been a writer if it was not for him. This is our first book together, The Quest of the Sparrows, the one that you see on your screen. We also co-wrote Daredreamers, our second novel together. And he's been a writer ever since I've known him. So ever since I was born, he's been writing. He used to write science fiction short stories, drama, etc. But like long form dramas for magazines, etc. And it was a dream come true for both of us when our first novel got published back in 2011. So good. It's great to be here. Thank you all for taking the time out. And I'm sure I'm really looking forward to spending this time productively and engaging with all of you. So I would like to keep this an open discussion forum. Don't hesitate to, I don't think I can see the chat screen when I'm presenting. So just feel free to like unmute yourself and say whatever you want. I'm also going to prompt you to speak. So please participate so that I don't feel like I'm speaking into a void. It's already hard to do this virtually. Would have loved to do this in person with all of you there, but let's get started then. So yeah, my topic is, as Abu was also saying, it's on the importance of dreams and a way or a guide to make them real. So how do we make our dreams come true? So let's get started then. So what are dreams according to you? What do you think classifies as a dream, or what is the definition? Like, just to get your thoughts going, I have this slide where I've laid out some options for you to think through, but don't feel restricted by these. Feel free to share whatever you think dreams are supposed to be or are not supposed to be.
Well, what I feel is like how our former president APJ Abdul Kalam has said, dreams are not which comes in your sleep, it does not which lets you sleep. So that's what I feel dreams are.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, if you quote somebody as great as our ex-president, it's difficult to argue with that, but that's a very, very appropriate definition. Thank you for sharing that. It was Vignesh, right?
Yeah.
All right. So then how, like, let's try and categorize this, right? So for just something that happens when we sleep, how many of you think dreams are this? Or how many of you think dreams are not supposed to be just something that happens when we sleep?
Dreams are not this.
Perfect. And do you think they are actionable?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think it's a way we keep ourselves motivated?
Yes, definitely.
Or again, I'm guessing you would say not an idle fantasy then. And then do you think it's a way for our unconscious mind to communicate with the conscious mind, or that's just a lot of jargon in a box?
A lot of jargon.
So yeah, I'm also going to introduce you to some of this jargon, but I really believe that dreams are a way for our unconscious mind to tell our conscious mind what we should be doing, what we are thinking about, but not very proactively, right? So if this, okay, I'll go to this in a little bit more detail in the coming slides as well, but let's move on for now. So apart from Parul, can anybody else respond and say that our dreams are independent of our life experiences, or are they not?
No, I don't think so. They are independent. They are dependent on our life experiences.
Yeah, I agree. And do you think they are an idea or a vision of a future that we want for ourselves and we want to move towards?
I think, I'm not sure if it happens with me, but there are some dreams that I can remember, but there are some dreams that I can't remember.
Yeah.
So,
okay. So
I'm not sure why does it happen. Is there a logic behind it or something?
Very good point, Abu. So it's not, sorry, did anybody else want to speak?
Yeah, I just wanted to say the whole, the idea or a vision for a future, sometimes it is also unresolved present that comes, poking in the dream, or perhaps past also. Yeah. So if you are not wanting to look into or focus yourself on particular issue and you've blocked it away, your mind has a very weird and twisted way of poking it back at you. And it is not always clear cut. Sometimes it is layered in symbolism and stuff, or perhaps in context. And you have, if you are lucky enough that you wake up with the memory of the dream, then you can analyze it and try to figure out what is my subconscious trying to tell me. So
Wow.
it's not just the idea of future, but also the present and the past that the dream can trigger.
Absolutely. So that's very profound, Iras. Thanks for sharing that. And let me take this first, because this is where I wanted to go, and then I'll come back to the point that you raised, Abu. So, Ira, I completely agree with that perspective, and thank you for sharing that insightful piece of information with us. But I honestly believe that our dreams are a manifestation of our current reality, and it's a lot of us, I would say probably all of us, but I don't want to generalize it beyond a point, but a lot of us do feel a sense of discontentment with our present and with our reality. And dreams are a manifestation of that discontentment. There are some things that, as you said, Ira, there are some things that we are either suppressing, and then our subconscious is throwing them out into our, so subconscious is the wrong word. It's the unconscious mind actually. So, but our unconscious mind has it's a storekeeper, right? It's a store of all the experiences, all the information that you're gathering, but your conscious mind is unable to process. So when you're walking down a street, your unconscious mind is taking a note of every single detail on that street, all the cars, all the people, all the stores. And it creates a record of all that. They don't get converted into memories until and unless they are able to pass that filter of your conscious mind. So our unconscious mind are like much deeper, much more richer in information, but our conscious minds unfortunately are very limited. So you might have heard a lot of people try and put a number to this to say we are using about 1 to 3% of our mental capacity, right? As human beings, we're not able to use any more than that because it's overwhelming. And our innate biological survival, one of the innate biological survival processes is to reduce the external stimuli that you're getting or not process them, just so that you can keep going. So it's important. It's a survival trick. It's a survival strategy. That's how nature works. And it ensures that we are all surviving. But somebody who is, let's say, going from 1% to 1.5% or 1% to 2%, they do so much more with their life and with their minds that we think it's unattainable, right? We think that these people are so bright. Like examples like Isaac Newton, Einstein, right? Like the work that they did hundreds of years ago is still valid today. Nobody's able to challenge them. They created an entire field, right? Like Newton was stuck with a problem in physics. He's trying to understand gravity. He's stuck with the problem, and he invented the entire mathematical field of calculus to solve that problem. So he's definitely not using 0.5% or 1% of his brain, right? Like the most of us. He's using a significantly larger percentage of that. So, but the idea is that there's this discontentment, right? Like you see things, you're not able to understand them, or you're suppressing them because you cannot deal with them. And then they come out in your dreams. And there is a huge part of this dreaming that happens during the daytime. So I'm not just talking about the dreams that we have when we sleep, but also the daydreams, right? Like when we're sitting idle, when you have some mental bandwidth and capacity to process certain ideas that have been lingering in the back of your mind, those are daydreams. You're not acting out on them, but we all have such dreams, right? Like when you're sitting and doing some inane kind of activity, our frontal cortex, the brain, thinking part of the brain, is freed up and you're doing a menial job, which is not intellectually stimulating for you. Like cutting vegetables, which I'm doing a lot in this lockdown. So it's a good learning experience for me. But then I'm thinking so much when I'm doing that. And other menial things that you can imagine, right? Like just walking, just taking a walk after dinner is something that like just allows you to go one level deeper inside your own brain. And it allows you to sort of understand the source of that discontentment and then create a dream or a vision to address that. So I don't want to be super political, but for example, let's say you're unhappy with the way your country is being run, the way our country is being run. You're unhappy with certain aspects of what's going on, how the prime minister made a decision to about this lockdown, let's say, right? Like, was it the right timing? And then you start imagining what would you have done if you were in power. That's a vision. That's an idea, right? You may be completely wrong. You're not an expert, but you have these ideas, and those are your daydreams. And those also have a lot of importance in the conversation that we're going to have going forward. So we're going to move to the next slide in the interest of time. I think we all get this. So just in summary, dreams are, and to make sure that we are all on the same page, this is just a preamble, right? And preambles are really important to make sure that we are all on the same page, and so that we are all moving forward together as we move along in this conversation. But dreams are basically not just something that happen when we are sleeping. They are not an ideal fantasy. They're not independent of our life experiences. And it's a double negative, but dreams basically shape and define our current reality as well. They don't just exist in a silo. They are at least not supposed to. Unfortunately, a lot of our dreams don't become a reality, and I'm going to talk to that a bit as well in the next slide. Dreams are definitely not a luxury that only a few can afford. All of us, irrespective of where we are in life, how old we are, what we are going through, we all have dreams. So we can definitely all afford those dreams, and we can all afford to act on our dreams. And the fact that we choose sometimes not to act on our dreams not just impacts our life, but you don't give your dreams a chance to shape the world in a way that it could have impacted and benefited so many others as well. So it's very, very important to not just be a daydreamer, but to be a dare dreamer, which is what my book is called. And that's the whole concept that I explore in that book. And we'll also get to that a bit later, especially when you do the reading. On the other hand, I would say that dreams are super actionable. So we should act on them, on our daydreams, whatever we remember from the dreams that we have in the night. And we remember some dreams more than the others, Abu, because some dreams are more actionable than the others, right? Sometimes you're just dreaming about sitting next to a pond, and it's not like something that you can do anything about. It's just a beautiful, probably memory or a fragment of a memory that just comes, and it's nice. It helps you relax. It helps you sleep better, but not necessarily actionable, but any actionable dream. So the entire plot of my third novel that I'm writing right now came to me in a dream. I had two choices the next morning. One was to go to work and get a cup of coffee and get into my car, go drive to work, spend the whole day there, come back home, forget about it. It's so easy to let that fizzle out, right? It's so easy to just not remember that you had this dream and not act on it, because we do that. Like, we get immediately absorbed into our day-to-day responsibilities, daily chores, etc. What I decided to do on the other hand, only because I had written a book called Daydreamers just before that, I decided to take that day off. I decided to write that book, take that day and start writing that book. What happened was that this was a Friday, and by Sunday, I had like about 50% of the first draft of the book ready. I took 3 more days off, or I think I went to work on Tuesday and Wednesday finally. I don't remember now, it's been a year, but I took at least the Monday off, and then the Tuesday evening, and I don't think I slept on Tuesday night, but on Wednesday, I finished the book. I finished the first draft of the book in 6 days flat. But just simply because I was like, I cannot let this go. It's an insight. It's some divine intervention or nature's way of communicating an idea to me, and through me and with me as a medium, this needs to be communicated to the world. So it's my chance and opportunity for me to do my bit in making the world a slightly better place than I find myself in today, right? So that was what drove me and really motivated me to write that novel. It's not published yet, but hopefully sometime soon. I'm working on editing it, and I'll let you guys know as soon as it comes out. But also, it's, as I said, dreams are an idea or a vision for a future that we would like to move towards, and they are a fundamental part of being a human being. Moving on. So my definition, as I said, is that dreams are a manifestation of our aspirations and desires, and they have the power to shape our reality. And this goes to everything that you, Abu, Ira, Parul, Vignesh, all of you said this, but you can take this few words, a small sentence, and play around with it, create your own definition of something that adds more meaning to it for you. But I just wanted to start out by saying that this is what I believe dreams are. And again, as I said,
sir?
Yes.
15 minutes over.
15 minutes done. Oh, wow. Okay, so I have 10 more or 5 more.
5 more.
Okay, so let me jump through this quickly then. Dreams are a manifestation of reality, and reality determine our aspirations, and aspirations determine our dreams in effect. So some of the dreams, I wanted to give you a chance to speak through this, but let me go through this quicker. We spent a lot of time on the first section, but for me, some of the dreams that I have and a vision or things that I place importance on are that I want to build and maintain relationships that enrich life. I want to be genuine and authentic in all of my endeavors. And I want to create a sustainable, positive change through my creativity and my work. So I'm a public health professional, and I bring elements of my creativity and my analytical thinking to my work as well. And I believe that I'm helping make the world of at least healthcare more equitable, giving dignity of healthcare, quality healthcare to everybody, working with the ministries of health in several countries to make sure that they are able to provide quality care for everyone. So that's something that I believe in, I'm very passionate about. And that's again, a big part of what I dream about, in addition to my writing and my alternate sort of career path with the work I do with my writing. So what should we do with our dreams? The bottom line is that we should make them come true. We should do everything in our power, in our capacity to make them come true. And then let's talk about some of the enablers, right, for making your dream come true. So they're going to throw a bunch of words at you. And the important thing is not to remember all of these, but to remember that whichever ones of these stick with you, those are the ones that can become the enablers and drivers for you to make your dreams come true. So hard work, no doubt, right? It's unquestionable. Honesty, sincerity, passion, avoid being cynical. Anybody can be cynical, right? Like when you see these people around yourself all the time who are just like, no, this cannot work. No, this cannot work. This is not a good idea. Nothing can be done. It's a fool's quest. It's a fool's pursuit. Forget about it. And and they're discontent and unhappy with their present, but they don't do anything about changing it. And that's like, I don't understand that mindset at all. So please avoid that at all costs. Optimism is to have hope from the future and believing that whatever you do adds to that vision that you have in making a better future. So don't be pessimistic. Have optimism that gives you energy to keep going on and to keep striving. You need to be well organized. You need to plan better. You need to have zeal and enthusiasm. You need to be very, very kind to everybody you meet. You need to keep learning. You need to keep growing. That's super critical. You need to always come from a place of love. Hatred and anger. Oh, you need to overcome fears as well. Hatred, anger, fears are all negative emotions. So don't do anything that's grounded in these sentiments. Always do something that comes from a place of love for you. Overcome distractions. Pick up your battles very carefully. Stay positive. Value failure. This is something that I can speak 20 minutes on for like just this topic. Importance of failing cannot be overemphasized. It's super critical to fail. It's super critical to learn from your failure as well. You need to believe in yourself. Again, something people have spoken about a lot. You need to have an abundant mindset. Again, this basically means not believing that there are only limited resources, that we are limited people. If I write a poem and I put it on the internet, somebody else will publish it or somebody will read it and get an idea. So I shouldn't share. Those kind of ideas and thoughts are limited mindset. An abundant mindset is that you are infinite. The universe is infinite. You will always have more energy, more ideas. So just put out what you have created. Don't be afraid about anything being limited. There is enough place for everyone. And then you need to be respectful. I wanted to talk to you about learn. And the biggest part of that is reading. And reading is something that this book club is for, right? Like you're all here because you want to understand how important it is to read. It's always good to let people tell you that it's important to read so that you don't fall off that practice. It's not an easy one especially if you've not had a practice of reading since you were a kid. I have been fortunate enough to be surrounded by books all my life. I've read like thousands of books, but I do think that stories are basically what separate human beings from other animals, and they're the foundation of our civilization and our existence. A difference between a man and a tiger, for example, or a horse is that every single horse baby will start afresh. They don't have any context of what their parents and generations before them went through. And that's the biggest thing that separates us from other animals. And we are a part of the animal kingdom, but we are very different from other animals. And that's because we are able to pass on stories generation after generation, and we always have a quest of something incremental. We're not redoing what our parents did ever. And books are the strongest medium of storing all of the information, the experience that the world has gone through, and putting it into a capsule of time and then delivering it to you. So take advantage of that and make sure that you are becoming a part of this grand story that we are all a part of.
But 20 minutes over, 5 more minutes. 20 minutes over, 5 more minutes.
Oh God. All right. Thank you so much. But yeah, I'll wrap it up in the next slide. I think I'll just one more slide after this. But it's basically reality is sometimes fiction that everybody believes in. And I'll leave you with one thought: money, right? What is money? It's nothing tangible. It's nothing concrete, but everybody believes in this small piece of paper when it says 500 or 1000. And then all of us think that, yeah, it's 1000 rupees. And the world moves on that, right? That money makes the world go round. And it's a myth. It's just a fiction that all of us believes. And so the importance of fiction cannot be overemphasized. And it's something that all of us need to believe and understand. And that's why reading is super critical and super important as well, because it's basically all these stories that if you believe in, it changes your life, right? At some level, it does that to you. There's stories of people by people. So yeah, we should make sure that we are picking up the parts of our shared history and our shared story from the best of the writers in the world who have written it, and become part of that civilization in some sense, and be a part of that human collective. Now, a lot of you will have questions around what should we read or not read, and we can also do this in the Q&A round. But my takeaway is none of these questions matter. It's pointless to get into this debate and discussion on what I should read and I should not read. I am a little bit of a victim because my dad really hated this particular author called R.L. Stine that I used to love as a kid. And he said, don't read this, your English will become bad, or this is not the right kind of stuff for kids to be reading, etc. But then like I grew up and I realized it's anything that anybody wants to read is awesome, right? Like we shouldn't think that nonfiction is better than fiction, or graphic novels are for kids, or like illustrated novels are for kids. Comic books are not for me, I'm 40 years old or whatever. Nothing like that. Anybody can read whatever they like. It's just a way to allow your brain to think about something else apart from your current life, so that when you come back into your current life and your day-to-day, you're taking away a lifetime that you lived in those 3 or 4 hours that you spent reading whatever you did. Whether it's nonfiction, it helps you approach a problem with a different powers or skill set or way of thinking. If it's fiction, you see how somebody else behaved in a particular situation, and that it allows you to learn from their experience as well. So just read whatever you can lay your hands on. Indian foreign authors, just don't read pirated books. That's the only request I would make all of you, because it impacts us writers. So please buy books as far as possible. Kindle, again, like a lot of people ask about audiobooks or reading ebooks, paperbacks. It really doesn't matter. Read whatever you can lay your hands on. Audiobooks are awesome. They are what existed before novels were written, right? So on radios, people used to tell stories and plays, and there were narratives and episodes before TV, before all of that. So you can always go back to the roots of how books became so popular. No problem with that. Movies, no, I don't think movies make sense, because it's something that's being directly somebody else's vision exactly put into your mind, right? So it's you're not thinking at all when you're watching a movie. Reading or listening forces you to think. It forces you to dream. It forces you to create an entire world and universe. So I would encourage reading rather than, even the movies carry story and they have their own value. They're beautiful sometimes, but reading is the most important thing. My last slide. So this is my bookshelf back in Delhi. I'm currently in Switzerland, so I really, really miss that. But I just wanted to show you that my house is completely full of books, and I really love it. It's like a safe haven for me and my personal refuge once I come back from work or on the weekends. But yeah, that's about it. I can take questions of what's the next segment. Sorry. We can go.
The next segment happens to be wherein we are going to read some part of their book, and this will continue for another 20 minutes, and then the last 10 minutes will be for question and answers.
Wonderful. So I'm presenting my screen again with my novel. It's called Daredreamers for everybody on the call. But yeah, please let me know if you can read this, or like if I can adjust anything.
Can I go first?
Hi. There was somebody who was saying something. I'm sorry, I missed that.
Somebody wanted to go first.
Can I read?
Oh, okay, great. So here's what we will do is we will have this. So was that Ira?
It's me. Yeah, Vignesh.
Oh, Vinit. Oh, yes, please. If you want to go first, please go.
Vignesh wants to go first.
Yes, Vignesh.
Can I start?
Yeah, please do.
Dude, why are we running? The hare asked the tortoise at the start line. Because you brag that you run fast, the tortoise retorted. My community and friends in the jungle chose me to challenge you. I'm here to prove we are no less. Running fast is one of my strengths, and yes, I'm proud of it. Just like a long life of 300 odd years is yours. I don't feel that you brag about it. It's the truth and I accept it, the hare said. He sniffed curiously and looked at the tortoise with his big, ever-curious eyes. Why should I run this meaningless race? It doesn't make any sense. Then beat me, the tortoise smiled. The old folks tell me that slow and steady can win any race. I'm determined to beat you, and I'm sure I can do it if I work hard enough. That's exactly the point. Why should you work hard and not smart? Surely you have abilities that I don't have. And I have qualities that you don't. Where does this race fit in? Survival of the fittest. That's where it fits in, declared the tortoise, puffing out his chest. But aren't both of us survivors? Otherwise, only one of us would have been standing here. Creation is about diversity. Besides, what happens after I win this race? Should I compete with a cheetah next and with laughingstock that day? If all I run, it will be for myself, my dreams and my desires, not for you or this jungle. So, what do you want to do right now? Got anything better to do than run this race? Tortoise quipped. Yes, the hare answered. I want to sit in the shade and relish the fresh, juicy carrot. Get lost chasing the clouds in the endless blue sky, dig deep burrows to unearth new and exciting finds. Play with my friends, explore what lies beyond that horizon. I won't live the 300 odd years that you will. My life is too short to waste running mindless races. Ah, that's funny, the tortoise sneered. The gun went off and he started running. That is, he started moving as fast as he could. The hare stood in his spot and shook his head. Then, without warning, he ran far from the madding crowd. He followed his heart. The tortoise won the uncontested race. 240 years later, time hung heavily over the tortoise's mundane routine of eat, swim, sleep, repeat. He was tired of hiding beneath the shadow of his shell, afraid of the vultures that dotted the skies. The hare had told him the sky was an endless blue with clouds of many shades. Was the hare not afraid of the predators? He had dared to be a dreamer. Why was he so different? Life is complicated, the tortoise thought as he entered the swamp for his last swim. He disappeared without a ripple. Despite living and being an intrinsic part of the jungle for almost 300 years, not a soul missed him. The race that had been the cornerstone of his life was made into a fable by his community. The legend of the hare, however, remains to be told.
Thank you so much. Great. Would you like to share a quick gist of it, what you read?
Oh, the hare wanted to have a race against the tortoise, and the tortoise was telling to the hare, oh, why you want to race against me? And he was telling, I just don't think about the race. I just want to go and dig deep burrows and play with my friends, and I don't have a lifespan like how you do, and just I want to enjoy my life. And that's what he was telling about that. And the race started when tortoise started walking slowly, and after some time the hare started off and he ran, and the race ended.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Wonderful. Can we have a second participant, please? I know Anusha has requested for becoming the fourth reader. People, you have to shout out your name so that I can see you all. Yes. Do I have any volunteers? Okay, Shrajita. Yes, Shrajita. Please start.
Thank you, Dismas. Dream turns to nightmare. The alarm rang and Rasik woke up without hitting snooze for the first time in his life. He checked the clock, 6 a.m. Rasik had spent a fitful night, anxious about the coming day. Today is the first day of the rest of my life, he thought as he got out of the bed and stretched, still drowsy. He pulled out his toothbrush from his travel bag and headed to the bathroom. While brushing, he thought about his mother's advice. First impressions are hard to erase. The shower he took was unusually long. He scrubbed himself obsessively as if to cleanse himself of ages of dirt. His shave was closer than ever. Thanks to the new Match 5 razor that his father had gifted him. Next, he put on cologne, again something he had never done before. Deodorants he understood, but colognes were an enigma. He applied a little gel on his thick, straight hair which had been cropped short to make sure it didn't stand up at odd angles during the course of the day. The new shirt he wore was double cuffed, the cufflinks that his girlfriend Ruchika had gifted him. His new Van suit had cost him a bomb considering he had not earned a rupee in his life yet. Finally, he wore his new Aldo shoes. He didn't know anyone who wore shoes that cost 10,000 rupees. But then he didn't know any investment bankers either. He
Thank you
checked
so much.
himself in the...
Shrajita, can you please give a summary of this, please?
So we read that there's a man who is being in some hurry, and as his mother said to him that first impression is the last impression. So while he was getting ready, while he was bathing, while he was dressing himself up, all he could think about that, and every moment of that image, whichever lesson his mother taught to him, he is getting in his mind. And everything, when he was wearing shoes or dressing up, so while he was wearing shoes, he was thinking that such costly shoes cannot be worn by a man like him. That's it.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Shrajita. Thank you so much. The next reader is Anusha. Anusha, can you please start?
Can I have a new story? Because I was lost in the middle. My signal went off.
So this is evil. I don't know if I can the story.
I lost the story in the middle. You want me to try this?
Oh, yes, because we have just started with the, this is a brand new book and we are there in the first section. The story has just started.
Oh?
Anusha, you can start from here as you need to summarize what you read. If
Yeah,
you
so I
start
don't
reading,
have the background.
Okay. The background. So what we will do is, the story has just, so we can give you the portion which Rajita has read. Karthik, could you be kind enough to go right at the start of the story? So
Okay.
yes, you can start from the alarm rang.
Okay, dream turns to nightmare. The alarm rang and Rasik woke up without hitting snooze for the first time in his life. He checked the clock, 6 a.m. Rasik has spent a fitful night, anxious about the coming day. Today is the first day of the rest of my life, he thought, as he got out of bed and stretched. Still drowsy, he pulled out his toothbrush from his travel bag and headed to the bathroom. While brushing, he thought about his mother's advice. First impressions are hard to erase. The shower he took was unusually long. He scrubbed himself obsessively, as if to cleanse himself of ages of dirt. His shave was closer than ever, thanks to the new Mac 5 razor that his father had gifted him. Next, he put on cologne. Again, something he had never done before. Deodorants he understood, but colognes were an enigma. He applied a little gel on his thick, straight hair, which had been cropped short, to make sure it didn't stand up at odd angles during the course of the day. The new shirt he wore was double-cuffed, the cufflinks that his girlfriend Ruchika had gifted him. His new Van Heusen suit had cost him a bomb, considering he had not earned a rupee in his life yet. Finally, he wore his new Aldo shoes. He didn't know anyone who wore shoes that cost 10,000 rupees. But then, he didn't know any investment banker either. He checked himself in the full-length mirror and was satisfied with what he saw. At 5 feet and 11 inches, he just missed the tall benchmark, but his lean frame made him seem taller. A dusky complexion, sharp features, and a square jaw added up satisfactorily enough. But it was the intensity in his eyes that made him, according to Ruchika, hard to ignore in a room full of people. He stepped closer to the mirror to wear contact lenses for the first time in his life. You have beautiful eyelashes, Ruchika had told him when they were shopping at the mall a week ago. You shouldn't hide them behind your spectacles, behind your thick spectacles. Yuck, Rasik had reacted. Who puts a foreign object in their eyes? That's so ridiculous. You know, I love your lashes. Why can't you do even this much for me? She had pleaded with her index finger dangerously close to her thumb, the gesture suggesting that the favor asked was insignificant. He ought to carry it out with grace. Rasik had acceded to her request. What choice did he really have in the matter? His
thank you so much, Anusha.
eyes split a small waterfall. Did you interrupt?
Yes.
I can't hear.
Can you please share just? I'm so sorry. Most probably it must be the volume. Can you please share a gist of what you have there? I'm so sorry to interrupt you in between.
Now I can hear. I can hear. I should summarize?
Yes, please, Anusha.
Okay, it's basically about this guy Rasik who's got up in the morning on a very important day, which is it is for him. And during the entire para that I read out, it's all about his attention to his appearance, little subtle aspects which he's missed out, and aspects which have been pointed out to him by his people who are close to him, his mother, his girlfriend, and he's trying to utilize all the hints which have been given to him to make sure he has the best appearance for whatever important function he's going to be facing today. And there's a lot of highlighting of his beautiful lashes and how his eyes are actually being hidden behind thick spectacles and his expressions are not getting through. So that's where I stop. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that wonderful gesture. Thank you so much, Anusha. Now we have scope for the last reader. Do I have any volunteers for the last reader?
Let's have our international reader, Parul Agarwal.
Parul, yes. Parul, could you look?
Okay.
Can I request you to please continue from there?
Yeah. His bloodshot eyes split a small waterfall by the time he overcame his struggle with the lenses. He took out his silk handkerchief and mopped his eyes and face. He checked himself in the mirror a final time and nodded in appreciation of his new avatar. The first day of the rest of my life. He went down to the lobby of the hotel, the Trident. Nariman Point was his transitory home courtesy to his employers. He had a week to find an apartment in Mumbai. Good morning, sir. The woman at the reception greeted him. Sir, Rasik thought, wow, I'm only 23. Was she the one who checked me in yesterday? She wasn't that courteous when I was in my worn jeans and t-shirt. His office was a short walk from the hotel. It was 7:30 a.m. He had been asked to report at 9, plenty of time. He crossed the road and walked to the waterfront. Pristine. Rasik inhaled the fresh morning air, a small luxury that Mumbai afforded its residents. He caught the rare side of the morning sun, its orange hue reflecting radiantly off the sea. The streets were mostly empty. He had an hour to gaze at the shore, which was waking up. But he couldn't sit on that low boundary wall along the promenade, as he had done the evening before with Ruchika. He couldn't afford to ruin his new suit. He stood looking at the horizon, dreaming about a future that was about to unfold. Chai, boss? Came a shout from behind him. Cutting, Rasik responded like a Mumbaikar. He had heard people order tea that way the day before, an oddity unique to Mumbai. The man served him super hot tea in a plastic cup of dubious quality. This can't be hygienic, Rasik thought. The thought of was immediately followed by the realization that he had never bothered about the quality of cups before. His transformation had begun from the moment he had worn that suit. First time in Mumbai? The tea guy asked him in a thick Mumbai accent. Yes, Rasik acceded. In fact, it's my first day here. I arrived last evening. How did you know? It's obvious, boss. Rasik smiled. Can you give me a classic Miles too? The man took one out from a pack and gave it to Rasik. He lit the cigarette for Rasik. Rasik pulled deeply at his cigarette and asked, how much? Arey boss, the man said, today is your first day in town. I can't take money from you. No, Rasik insisted. He put his cup down on the promenade boundary and pulled out his wallet. I have to pay you. No, boss, the man said as he started walking away. Pay me tomorrow onwards. I cannot forget my first day in Mumbai. I was penniless and managed some food that day thanks to a kind man. I am just repaying the debt I owe to that city. The man rushed to serve other people.
Thank you, Pawan. Sorry to interrupt. Could you be kind enough to
No
share a
worries.
gist of it?
So Rasik gets ready, goes down the hotel lobby, and he is supposed to report at 9 o'clock, but he has a lot of time. He's gotten ready very fast, and he goes out and he goes and watches the shore where he observes the nature and decides that he can't sit down because he's wearing an expensive suit. And then this chai guy comes up and offers tea to him. And they have a cute conversation where the chai guy refuses to take money because it's his first day. And Rasik also realizes that as soon as he's worn the suit, he started worrying about qualities of the teacup and not being able to sit because he's wearing an expensive suit. So he realizes that just wearing that suit has brought about a change in him.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pawan. So these will be all the readers for today. Param, would you be kind enough to go ahead? Can you pop up? Great. Param, can you go ahead and give that polling option?
Abu, I can't do polling because I'm not the host, but I've
Oh,
shared
you
the
are not
link. I've shared the link on the chat and on the WhatsApp group. People can vote.
Thank you so much, people. So please vote for the best reader. While we are voting for the best reader, we have now an opportunity to go ahead and shoot our questions to Karthik Sharma, and please be rest assured that you will definitely get an answer tonight. So Karthik, the stage is all yours, and let's start with Q&A now.
Sounds good, Abu. Any questions, anyone?
Karthik, I have a question. So, Karthik, I like the way you mentioned that, you had this dream about this particular book and you started to write. Generally, not a dream, but whenever I'm in between something, at times there is this idea that clicks. So it's not a dream. If I'm doing something, all of a sudden I'll have a thought about, okay, I should be writing about something. And then I feel that whenever you get an idea, is it a right opportunity to just go ahead and start writing, or to stop and start writing, or do we have to analyze before we write something?
You ask very tough questions, Abu. So, but thank you for that. So I think it's a process of marination, right? Like, I don't know if you eat chicken, but it's the process of marination. So there is a time point, there is one point in time where this idea will be ready for you to start writing. But oftentimes what I have noticed is that if I don't write it down immediately, I'll forget it. At least writing it down, maybe not trying to give it its final shape and being okay with the fact that it's not in its final shape. So a lot of writers, what they do is they keep a small notebook with them all the time, and they'll take out a pen and they'll write. I do that on my Google Keep or on my tablet. I write down there is a document that's called Rough, and it's full of I don't know, I can't even like email it to myself on my Gmail because it says it's more than 100 MB or something. So it's just like a ton of ideas, just like a dump. But even that process helps because you've started thinking about it, right? Like you started developing the idea the moment you started writing it. If you ignore it, if you're like, let me, like, I'm so smart, let me think about it for the rest of the day, I'll come back and write it tomorrow or over the weekend. That normally doesn't happen. You tend to forget, you tend to let it go. And sometimes the idea is that in that moment, when you have an idea, when you have a thought or when you have a dream, in that moment, you are moved. You're very deeply moved by what you just thought about, right? Like the reason why you thought about it is because you're deeply moved. So it's the right time to channel the mental space that you are in to just put that pen to paper, make that little bit of a effort and note it down. You'll forget about it. Other things tend to become so much more important. I've forgotten my novel plots because I was traveling and I was like, let me enjoy this scenery right now. Who wants to take out this notepad and write something, right? So it's really, and then I feel really sad, and I feel like I let go of an awesome idea, could have been a potential bestseller, but that's why it's important to at least jot it down, even if it's in a rough shape and form. But yeah, that's my experience talking more than anything else.
Thank you so much, Karthik. That is a very value add. Thank you so much for that suggestion. Great, thank you. Yes, people, Karthik is all ears.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you certainly can, Anusha. Please go ahead.
Okay, my question is, how valid is poetry? A random musings written, randomly. I've been told poetry doesn't sell. It's not very acceptable in the market today, but fiction is. How true is that?
It depends on the unit economics, and I can talk to you about it for hours. But honestly, there is no money to be made in writing. Whoever is telling you otherwise is deluded. So I would say writing essentially today has become a pursuit of passion, and it's a pursuit for people who are inherently, intrinsically deluded. So don't like, the idea is that it's a pursuit of spirit, right? It's something that you do because nothing else makes sense or nothing else makes as much sense, right? Like if I ask you, what is the unit economics for breathing? What's your answer to that, right? Like you just stop existing if you don't breathe. And for me, that's writing. I will stop existing if I don't write.
Can I just add one little thing?
Yes, please.
What I meant when I said that it doesn't sell, I did not mean the financials of it. I meant people are not really interested in poetry. Is that true?
Yeah, it's hard for me to comment, but I honestly don't think it's the right motivation to write anything. So that's where I was going, that if you're writing because there's like a mass audience, it's not the right motivation. And again, sorry if it sounds a little bit harsh, but I've thought about it a lot. I think like there is a deep seated intrinsic motivation for writers or poets to write down what they write, right? It's you do it for yourself, you do it for your own, the value it adds to your own life first. That's the first priority. And if you do it like with the honesty and sincerity and all the other words that I showed on the slide, I really believe it will strike a chord with somebody else who is in the same space as you. So it might be a blog post, it might be a full novel, it might be a short story, it might be a poem. But yeah, maybe you're right. Like maybe in the 1800s, 1900s, people were reading a lot more poetry, and like the poets were sort of much appreciated and much more appreciated and much more like given positions of importance in the society. And that's apparently not the case right now, but it's not the same with fiction writers either, right? So there are no courts where you see fiction writers holding positions of any importance. It's millions of writers, of which you know probably 10 names today, right, from India. So it's not, I would say it's like, it's almost the same between, there's no difference between fiction and poetry, to my mind at least, if you do it for the right reasons, if you do it with the right pursuit of passion. I hope that answers, and I'm sorry.
Beautifully said, beautifully said. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we have our final question from Srajita. Srajita, all ears. Hi, Strajita, we are waiting for your question, dear.
Yes, this one, sir. So, Karthik, sir, I just want to ask that what is the definition of a good speaker according to a good reader? No. Good author according to you.
Good author, reader, or speaker?
Author. Author, sir.
Author. Okay. So first thing first, don't call me sir, please. It makes me feel very old. I'm not that old. I might be much older than all of you here, but it feels odd to hear sir in front of my name. Karthik is fine. Please feel free to call me Karthik. But coming to your point, I think a good author is, again, like as I was explaining just now as well, I think a good author is somebody who writes from their heart, right? And they write about an issue that they are deeply moved by, and they're being authentic, sincere in what they're trying to communicate or why they are telling that story, right? So again, like I don't want to offend anybody, and I don't hold anybody in lower regard than anybody else, etc. And honestly, Chetan Bhagat is IIT Delhi, IIM Ahmedabad, investment banking. My every single checkbox in life has been checked off by him as well. And I really respect him for making so many Indians read books. Like if you ask a majority of readers today, they'll name a few Chetan Bhagat books or one of his books as the only book that they have read. And it's a huge accomplishment. And you cannot discredit that. And I really respect him for that. I met him, I like him. But I just want to say that he writes, and you can see his interviews as well. He says that he writes because there is a business in writing. And he writes because there's money to be made there. And he's writing also because he wants more and more people to read, and all those things all can go together. They do go together. But his writing is not authentic, right? He's not worked in a call center, for example. He is an IIT grad, and then 5 Point Someone was an amazing book. He felt it was a felt experience. It was a lived in experience. You read his book and you felt like, oh, this is what it feels like to be going through IIT. Now, not many people may be interested in reading that, or may not be the most important thing to be written about in the world. But it's amazing in the sense that it adds value because it's authentic, it's sincere, right? So to me, that's a good author. If you double click, so that's about becoming a good author. Let's like go a little bit deeper in this. And there is always a lot of hard work in anything that you do well, right? So you can learn how to run or you can learn how to skate, but then to win a national level competition, you need to be something else, right? You can't be the best in your block or the best in your city and say that I'm a good skater or I'm a good runner and compete with somebody who's a national gold medalist, right? So there is a lot that goes between good and between excellent or awesome. So what I've said, it defines good for me. What defines excellent is perseverance, continuously learning and learning from the best, and writing things that make other people think, right? That's the best metric that I can say. So if I read a book by, let's say, Kazuo Ishiguro or Salman Rushdie, who are my favorite authors, it makes me think deeply about my life, my existence, human life, human existence, the societal construct that we are all a part of. And it makes me want to write. Being a novelist makes me want to write more. So I think that's excellent. And that's something that I strive for personally. I'm not there yet, not at all, but it's still something that I aspire to.
Wow, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Karthik. Beautifully answered. Param, do we have the results for
Yes,
the reading?
I have messaged you and Karthik personally. If any of you can see your chat, you can read the name.
Okay, yeah, I completely agree with this one. So the Best Reader Award goes to Anusha. Congratulations.
Yay.
Yeah, Anusha.
For the 4th time.
Oh, wow.
No. Just the third time.
Third time, sorry. Third time.
I was honestly thinking that you can do an audiobook. I already have mine. Otherwise, I would have loved to have you do my audiobook as well. But you can honestly do an audiobook. It was very, very nicely articulated.
That's so heartening. Thank you.
Amazing.
So that brings us to the end of our workshop. I want to thank Karthik. Thank you so much, Karthik. It's so amazing to have you. Thank you so much, readers. We'll be back next time and we'll be back with 2.0. Please watch out. I'm sure you will be amazed by what we have to offer. Thank you once again, Karthik. You were brilliant tonight. And thank you so much, everyone, for participating. That will be all. Let's click a picture.
Please switch on your videos and show your beautiful faces. Abu. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Param, would you like to conclude today?
Yes. So readers, as you have seen, like a great author, an IIT and IIM author like Karthik Sharma has just appointed Anusha for her audiobook. That's the power of reading we want to bring. So if you read daily with us, if you read every time whenever we get together in the week, you can also get this opportunity. Maybe some other author, or maybe Karthik must be attending our session and he asks you for another opportunity to read or do an audiobook. Read for yourself. Read for making yourself better than yesterday. That's all. Thank you so much, Karthik, for an amazing session. And over to you, Abu.
Before you close it out, Abu, I just want to say that it was a pleasure to be here this evening and spend all of this time with you guys. Awesome. You guys are doing great work. Congratulations and keep going strong. I'll be looking out for the 2.0.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karthik. Means a lot. Thank you so much, people. Have a lovely evening and please join us for our next session. That will be all. Have a lovely, beautiful evening ahead. Thank you so much, people.